actually, in a certain way. And they're great negotiators. I say they're lousy fighters, but they're great negotiators. And they are begging to work out a deal. I don't know if we'll be able to do that. I don't know if we're willing to do that. They should have done that 4 weeks ago.
The clock is ticking on Trump's energy strike deadline. The White House says Iran is looking for an exit ramp, and back-channel talks are quietly happening. Welcome to the Big Money Show. I'm Taylor Riggs, along with my co-host Dagan McDowell, Brian Brenberg, Jackie DeAngelis, and with us for the hour, Making Money host Charles Payne.
Hey, great to be here.
Love having you. So
One day I'm going to be on an update, though.
I know. So U.S. officials say that Iran's war machine has been hammered, with more than 2/3 of its missile, drone, and naval capabilities either damaged or destroyed. The Pentagon is preparing options for a final blow, while Iran is threatening to close now the Red Sea. The president says that Iran is begging for a deal, and 2 Iranian officials were removed from the target list. So, with a damaged regime, the question really for investors is the posturing getting us closer to a negotiation, or is this more of an escalation of this conflict? Charles, that's sort of where we'll go to you. I was looking at the Dow, S&P, NASDAQ. We're not close. We're about 5-6% down since this conflict started. So we're not in a correction territory, but you're inching closer when you think of some of the drawdowns.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's I always say the investors are a lot smarter now all around than they ever were before, and many are resisting the urge to just out-and-out panic. Although within the market itself, there's other narratives that are working, right? You know, the software collapse is just amazing, has nothing to do with this conflict, but there are some intriguing things happening in the market. I think it was Deutsche Bank. They've got a good survey, and it shows only 3% of investors think this will be resolved this month. There's only a couple of days left, but over 50% think that April, and then another big chunk thinks that by May. So investors are just sort of saying marking time. You know, it's one of these things, to your point. Maybe a couple more, there could be a couple more headline shots, boots on the ground, this kind of thing. But I think investors are trying to look through this. Ironically, the same thing that we would like to see Powell do with respect to the policy, Federal Reserve policies, to look through this. Investors, for the most part, are looking through it. Although I will say on Monday was the first day in almost 3 years where retail investors were net sellers instead of buyers in the market.
Interesting. So, Dagan, I wanted to come to you on 2 points.
The 8 big, beautiful boats of oil. How about that? That was Iran's gift. Did you hear President Trump say that?
10 of them, right?
Yeah, +2. Palestinian flag boats sailing through the Strait of Hormuz. I digress.
No, so we could talk about that it being present. But what I was thinking about the market, and I did this for you, for every $5 the government receives in tax revenue, $1 is going to service the national debt. Those headlines make me nervous. Plus this headline, the 30-year fixed rate mortgage jumped up to 6.38% last week, according to Freddie Mac. That is now the highest since September 4th of last year. So when we're thinking about market positioning with rising rates, rising mortgage rates, I think the question is sort of the appetite for Americans, for everyday people to sort of understand, again, the willingness to see this through or not. Your thoughts?
I don't think that this compromises in any way, shape, or form President Trump's willingness to see it through. And I'll note that the 10-year bond, the yield is back up today. It's at 4.38% plus. And that for every $5, we're spending $1 in servicing the national debt. That's Torsten Slock's Daily Spark blog post. So debt service payments are rising, and mortgage rates are rising, and longer-term interest rates are rising. And this is in spite of, we have 3 government entities, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and the Federal Reserve, all buying debt to keep interest rates under control. The Federal Reserve started expanding its balance sheet, so reverse course, on December the 1st. The balance sheet has grown by about $120 billion since early December. back to 6.66 trillion. So the triple sixes, that's an accident. Up about 2%, not much. And then Fannie and Freddie have started buying, at the direction of President Trump, $200 billion in mortgage-backed securities. But this is all to prevent rates from going up when rates would be higher to match as we have to issue more debt. In an untouched market, the U.S. government and by extension consumers and borrowers across the nation would have to pay higher rates to attract more buyers, given the amount of Treasury debt that is being issued to finance our debt. And you have to ask the question, does Iran know that we cannot stay in this conflict in perpetuity? Can we even stay in this conflict for a year? If it's $2 billion a day, where's that going to come from? The U.S. is hamstrung by its ability to take on new debt, as our credit card is, in essence, beginning to be maxed out. And I'll also point to the issue we're $39 trillion in debt right now, and that is growing. And then our liabilities have completely swamped our assets in this country. So
not good, you're telling me.
Well, I could continue to go on, but the only thing that matters is our economy growing faster than our debt, and for now.
So, Jackie, Atlanta Fed GDP still comes in at 2% for the first quarter. It's not the 3, 4, 5%, but it's not 1 or 0 or negative. So 2% is good. On that note, when I remember a very interesting conversation I had with you that COVID changed the way we think about supply chains in China. And I'm wondering if this war makes us rethink the way that we're looking at fertilizer, oil, all of this through the Strait of Hormuz. The CRB foodstuff index closed yesterday at the highest level since November, because it's not just oil that goes through that strait, it's fertilizer, it's spring planting season. I'm thinking about our farmers out in the Midwest who are paying higher prices for fertilizer. They need higher crop prices then to sort of offset that. How are you thinking, I guess, maybe long-term big picture about this? Kind of sucks in the short term, but is this going to be the COVID moment where we rethink then sort of this supply chain and these routes long term?
I think so. I think you're 100% correct. It's just going to take a while to do it, and the conversations are already being had, especially within the Gulf states themselves, because they understand the importance of this. And if you think about what the United States and Israel are going to do, are they going to end it? Are they not going to end it? Are they going to end it by just mowing the lawn, and then we might potentially have problems? It gives even more argument to change those supply chains and make the strait less central. On Thursday of week 4, as a person who's looking at duration, I'm getting a little bit, I'm waiting to hear something that I think tells me or signals to me that the end is near. And I haven't really heard that. As a matter of fact, I feel like everything that's out there is kind of conflicting. And what I got out of the part of the cabinet meeting that I listened to only made me a little bit more confused. The Wall Street Journal reporting that Israel killed the commander of the IRGC who is responsible for the strait, essentially. That happened overnight. That's a good thing. Scott Bessent was talking about control of the strait in the cabinet meeting and trying to ease fears there. But we've got to see movement. We've got to see real movement. What we saw was these tankers that were supposedly, we found out, the gift that President Trump has been talking about. And I believe it was, the president said it was the flag of Pakistan. And I found that interesting because the Journal article said that it was Pakistan saying that the United States and Iran were engaged in indirect talks, giving some credibility to that, and that Tehran was listening to Washington's proposals, and they were thinking about ways to potentially end the conflict. But is that happening when you get a truth social from the president that says Iran needs to get serious? Or is everybody having these conversations and sticking to their parameters of what they want and not hearing the other in some way to be able to find a compromise? I find this concerning when I look at the 10-year. I find it concerning when I look at oil prices. The national average for a gallon of gas in this country is $3.98 now. So we're closer to my, $4 $4 I don't like it mark. And I would just say this, as many know, and I've shared this before, my mother came to the country, this country, before the revolution in 1979. I am a proponent of regime change there. I would love to see that happen. But I am not a proponent of war in general, long-term, mass destruction, casualties, boots on the ground, not interested in it. So the president's got, after tomorrow, roughly a week to off-ramp this, in my view.
Brian, I'm hoping that you're going to channel a little bit of Steve Forbes for us. He sat in that chair.
I would love to do that in life. That would be a win for me.
And he looked at me and he said, Taylor, you don't chicken out because the 10-year hits 4%. Come on, you're better than that. Iran is worth it, right? To go higher than 4% if needed to see this thing through. Stop chickening out in terms of that market, right?
I'm kind of there. I'm kind of there. Okay, let me just. I don't know if this is Forbesian, and I'm not saying Iran is worth it, but some data points hit me this year, just life data points. Okay, this week we got this big case on social media, which tells me the tide might be turning on the harm caused to kids. We got a ruling today, I think, from the Olympic Committee saying women will not play, or men will not play in women's sports, okay? And I'm adding these things up, and it's making me think about the world my kids will inhabit 20 years from now, and what are the things that will make it better for them. And I think men and women's sports will make it better for them. I think that a better handle on social media will make it better for my kids and grandkids. I think a degraded Iran that does not have the capability to project power 2,500 miles would make the world a better place for my kids, okay? And I saw this number today. U.S. Central Command says that more than 2/3 of Iran's missile, drone, and naval production facilities have been damaged or destroyed. And that, to me, is an investment by America in a future 20 or 30 years from now. I don't know if regime change is going to happen, Jackie.
Yeah,
I'd like to see it. I don't think it's the must in this situation. I think it's the plus. But when I see that, one thing I agree with Dagan on for sure is that Iran is betting that we will determine we don't have the money to keep doing this, and that's why they're trying to prolong it. But from my vantage point, thinking very long term, if we can finish the Iranian regime, not Iran and the Iranian people, the Iranian regime, and add it to the list of good things that have been happening this year that I think have a long-term payoff, then I'm not going to sweat the 10-year right now.
Right.
Because I think there's a much bigger prize at the end of it. I may not even benefit as much from it as your kids and my kids and grandkids, and I like that payoff.
I love ending on that note.
Well, we can afford it in the essence that we can tax and borrow.
Fair.
And print our own currency to then buy the debt that we're issuing. At what cost? I think that the short-term calculation is just the election.
Listen, if China's watching this conversation, they're just licking their chops because it sounds like we're ready to throw in the towel after 1 month. The cost doesn't matter. The 10-year yield doesn't matter. None of that matters. The objective, the peace dividend, a little bit to your point, is a gazillion times more important. By the way, the bond yields were going up for the last 3 years. In fact, Jim Grant says we're in a secular bear market for bonds in the next 30, 40 years, just like we were in a secular bull market the prior 40, and the prior 40 before that, the secular bear. So those kind of things might have been embedded anyway. Listen, the bottom line is if we're in it, we have to win it. We're in it. That's it. We're in it. And I think people know some of the things that matter. Regime change is not going to be one of the boxes that has to be checked. We'd love to see it checked. We pray that it's checked, but ultimately, it's going to happen in a very short period of time. Just the idea of winning wars in a week or so is just. You guys read that Brett Stevens thing in the journal?
Everybody's talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we should marvel at how well we're doing. We really should.
Yeah. Jackie took a big deep breath. I'm going to let you settle on that for a minute. As the situation in the Middle East evolves and continues to evolve, join Fox in supporting our troops. From daily needs to global emergencies, help us be there for those who serve. Scan the QR code or head to go.fox/Red Cross to donate to service to the armed forces today.